Nowadays on the internet, a hot topic is copyright and copyright infringement. It's a subject of many episodes of drama and plays a big part even here on YouTube in how content creation is governed. Many times, the issues surrounding it is the appropriation of someone else's work for financial gain. Here on YouTube, for example, that can lead to a copyright dispute. It can lead to a more severe copyright strike, which, if you get enough of those, your channel gets deleted. And then there are other actions that can occur, such as a civil suit, which is filed in federal court, and then depending on if you're the winner or loser, there are very serious consequences for whichever side prevails. But there's one thing that's even worse than any of the sanctions YouTube can give you or civil court can give you. Federal criminal charges. You've seen that warning a million times, and maybe you wondered, is it just for show? Is it all bark and no bite? Well, I'm here to tell you there's a lot of bite behind that bark. And for one YouTube in particular, Omi and a Hellcat, his real name David Caracchio, well, he's been in the process of learning how real that bite is. For those of you unaware who Omi is, Omi runs a channel, Omi and a Hellcat, and it documents his life in a vlog style, his awesome cars, his luxury items, his business ventures, and the traveling he gets to do, along with things involving his family.
Omi in the Lambo? Nah. Omi in the Hellcat? Yeah.
It was this past week, Omi was sentenced to 5.5 years in federal prison for violating multiple federal laws, including primarily the Copyright Act. So I guess it's more like Omi in a jumpsuit now.
Boo this man!
So what specifically did Omi do? Well, his major crime started by stealing cable and then pirating the television feeds. Now, through 2016 into 2019, Omi got equipment from China that allowed him to decrypt and then broadcast cable signals from cable boxes that he would get from Comcast, Spectrum, DirecTV, and Verizon, just to name a few. With those in place, a normal cable subscription could then be displayed out on the internet through what's called an IPTV, an Internet Protocol TV service. He would do this through multiple websites. One of them was called Gears Reloaded, one of them was called Gears TV, and he would charge about $15 a month for this. No, typically you access these streams through an Amazon Fire Stick, and you would download some software, and then you could access anything that was shown on cable TV at that time. Movies, shows, sporting events, sometimes even pay-per-view things. Now, some of you are sitting there saying, wow, this sounds like ghetto Netflix, and you're right. And you're also probably thinking, wow, this sounds highly illegal. I wouldn't have done this. I know better. And you're also right there as well.
Isn't it? I mean, everybody does it, right?
What? Oh, hey, if you're having second thoughts, just read this pamphlet.
So you've decided to steal cable.
Uh-huh.
Myth. Cable piracy is wrong. Fact. Cable companies are big, faceless corporations, which makes it okay.
So how did Omi get caught? We really don't know from reading the indictment. But it certainly wasn't something as stupid as advertising your service multiple times on your YouTube channel and identifying itself as an IPTV service. I mean, certainly you'd have to be a fucking idiot to do something like that. I mean, really. And then it doesn't help, and certainly you wouldn't be moronic to name your shell corporation Hosting Bros Incorporated. And once again, you'd have to be an absolute fucking moron. But I don't think Omi's one of them. In 2019, the federal government indicted Omi on 62 counts. Yes, you heard that right. 62 counts involving various crimes, including violations of the Copyright Act, tax evasion, filing false bank statements, and conspiracy, just to name a few. On February 11th of 2022, Omi then pled guilty to 37 counts, and those included charges like piracy, circumvention of an access control device, reproduction of a protected work, public performance of a protected work, access device fraud, wire fraud, false statements to a bank, false statements to federal officials, tax evasion, and engaging in monetary transactions derived from specified unlawful activity. Now, once again, I talked about this before, tax evasion rears its head. Why? Well, in this case, Omi is believed to have profited about $30 million from this pirating scheme? Well, remember, if you have this money, you can't just throw it in a bank account because the bank's going to report it. And then the government's going to ask questions. And you can't just put on your taxes because you have to account for it. So what do? Well, you try to engage in money laundering and you don't pay taxes and you don't report it. That's about the only way you could do it. And especially when you have sums like that, it becomes pretty obvious tax evasion is about the only route. This past week, Omi was sentenced to 5.5 years in prison, which is actually not too bad considering the feds were asking for about 15 in their sentencing recommendations. But in addition to those 5.5 years in prison, he has to do a couple different things. He has to surrender about $5 million that was in a bank account he owns, his 50 luxury vehicles, which if you guys remember at the beginning of that intro, all those white cars are high-end cars. And then all the fine, fancy things he has, all his watches, the luxury items he possessed that he loved to show off. He's also got to surrender multiple homes that he had across the Philadelphia area. The cable companies working with the federal government were able to determine that their financial loss was about $167 million through his pirating scam. And there are remnants still you can find of this IPTV service. Now, if you try to access them, you'll find out the federal government has seized those domains and blocked any access to them. So, nice try, guys. You're not going to get your hood Netflix for free now, since Omi's in prison. And with that being said, Omi was given a report date, just like many federal defendants who aren't in trouble for violent crime, to show up at the Bureau of Prisons at a later date. In his case, it's May 8, 2023. And I think this is an interesting situation here to talk about because you do hear routinely on YouTube issues of copyrights and copy strikes and things being done maliciously. You hear about Sargon and Aquila, but you never hear about people getting in like real trouble. And this is real trouble. And I think it's just interesting to see how far somebody went. And clearly, this wasn't just, an oopsie poopsie moment. This was a concerted criminal effort to steal cable. And just the scope of it, I think, is actually somewhat impressive here. Now, I really would be interested to know how he got caught. I don't know if it really was just the YouTube videos or somebody got mad and snitched him out. Because for every single one of these people that get caught, there are millions and millions of them who don't. And, for example, with the Fire Sticks, you can go find these services now and get basically free television. I don't encourage you to do that because you're also violating copyright. You're also breaking the law. The weirdest thing of all for Omi is he had a YouTube channel that was doing really well and certainly was taking care of itself. The guy had a sneaker line, all kinds of things, of business ventures he had going, and yet he did all this dumb, illegal shit and ruined it all. I just don't get it. I mean, I would love to have an 800,000 subscriber channel. The things I could do, the things I could put in place. I mean, I have some pretty cool things I think I could do, not only for this channel, but I think there's some philanthropic things I could do, things you could do with that reach and power. Yet this guy decides to steal cable. I just don't get it. So that's it for today, guys. Please, if you enjoyed this, give me a like, give me a subscribe. I certainly would appreciate that. Comments or questions below. Do you think this is too harsh of a sentence? Do you think it's too lenient? Do you think even pirating cable should be a crime? I mean, seriously, let me know what you think. And remember, until next time, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. I mean, except for you, Omi. I mean, bro. You can't advertise this stuff and brag to the world on YouTube that you're breaking the law. Come on, man.